She scored. She got out of her
Good
group.
morning, everyone.
Good
morning. Happy New Year. Welcome to the first meeting of the new year for the Finger Lakes Regional EMS Committee. And we've got a good turnout. Again, thank you all. I would ask you all to please join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sorry, I don't want to hit you.
I know.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes from November 19th of 2019. Motion to approve the minutes from the first. Any second? Any second from anyone who might have just walked in the door? Second. Anyone that has any corrections or changes? All right, thank you. All right, I don't know where Donna is. Does anyone have to see Donna?
She was looking down when I walked in.
All right. Well, we're going to try to keep moving along here. We've actually got a fair amount of things to talk about today. So first of all, I'm going to start off with my report. And again, I just want to welcome everyone, and I know you guys have busy schedules. I think you all have taken time out to come to this meeting. I want to remind you all that if you haven't realized it, winter has finally hit us, and it's trying to make up, I think, for our previous few months. So please remind your crews, let them stay warm, let them dress appropriately, and even more importantly, is keep their patients warm. We all know that cold, their patients can cause a lot of harm down the road. So please keep your patients warm. I know it's a little bit of a struggle when you're dressed to be outside in the cold, and you got to crank the heat up and back the ambulance, or helicopter, as the case may be. But please keep that in mind. And also remember about carbon monoxide. You know, it is one of the silent killers out there, and keep your crews aware, not only what their patients present with, but even themselves as they enter some of these buildings and houses. So please keep that in mind. We attended the state EMS meetings last week, and they were rather interesting. Actually, Jason has a pretty good report from the proceedings of those 2.5 days, but I just want to talk about one item that we discussed very much at the state meetings, but also affects us locally, and that's the 1401 policy, which is the Medical Review Board policy. As you might recall, we had to go into executive session at the last meeting, and it concerned a case where we were requested to convene a medical review board for 1401. We did so. We came back with the Remac recommendations from that review board, which was to restrict the practice of a paramedic based on the review of his actions. And we were then met with a lawsuit from that paramedic. The lawsuit alleged that we did not have the right as a Remac to restrict a paramedic's practice in the region. Now, for the last 30 years that I've been in this region, and for the last 40 years that I've been practicing, if the medical director in the region, the Remac, had come to a conclusion that your practice was inappropriate, unsafe, whatever the case may be, they had always taken action to restrict your trade and either dismiss you from practicing or arrange for remediation. Well, as it turns out, reviewing the law, now mind you, this is not standard of care, this is not ethics, this is law. And unfortunately, we are bound by law. Law specifically says that the Remac does not have the authority to do that. Much to the dismay of this Remac chair, and many other Remacs across New York State. I'm watching your face, so you give me signals if I say anything wrong. All right. So the way the law is written, and this is Article 3004, I believe. The agency medical director, this is the medical director that is in some fashion contracted with the agency, has the authority to remove a paramedic practicing based on their actions. The state, and only the state, and technically only the commissioner, has the authority to also do that, but can also remove the certification issued by the state. The state is the only organization that can issue a certification and revoke that certification. There are a lot of Remacs across the state that have given their own local certifications. They may look pretty, they may look nice on the wall, they mean nothing. They can come and go, but have nothing to do with that paramedics' actions in the region. So the way it stands now, 1401 is not necessarily wrong. We can still convene a medical review board. We can still come up with recommendations. The recommendations can go to the agency medical director. The recommendations can go to the state. One, the other, or both. And we can then push for them to take action. But as a Remac, we cannot take action. So I want you guys to understand what's happened over the last few months. John, Donna, everyone in the office here has just been inundated with these actions. So if anyone had sent something to them, requested something from them, and didn't get it right away, I want you to understand they were very busy doing other things, and give them cut them a little bit of slack, just a little bit.
We got big shoulders.
Yes, they have big shoulders. It's really taken a lot of time. Switch your time for a second. I'll let you answer in a minute when I'm done. So that's where 1401 stands. That's where we stand with that action. Any questions?
Moving forward, does this mean that this body does not have a QA committee, or just have a
No.
MRB board?
No. I think we're going to continue with our QA committee. The QA committee can also make recommendations back to the agency medical director, to the state. The medical review board is something that's convened either at the request of a specific paramedic or a specific agency when they can't get it done through other means. This was an unusual case. I hope we don't come across it again. But I think the medical review board is still something we can follow in the future if we need to. But I'd like to still follow our QA processes, sir.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think all activities that are with the purpose of increasing the quality of care within our region can continue. The only thing that we wouldn't be able to do would be to issue anything punitive or anything that's restrictive to the provider. We could only issue opinions, and the other part would be if like a local medical director or an agency referred a specific individual or an issue between agencies to the Remac. The Remac could issue opinions that then could support the decisions of medical directors. The other thing I don't know if you want to talk about would be how we continue with RSI and credentialing and with issuing because we can't issue certification or privileges. What we could do is we can issue recommendations, but the authorization for RSI privileges comes from the agency.
Yes. So it really doesn't change our
Which doesn't
practice
change,
per se.
yeah.
Other than
You just gotta use the right
that for the
terminology.
Remac, it goes back to the
Yeah.
agency, exactly.
Just so we all use the right terminology, so that we're, which I don't think anything, and I can speak for myself. I wouldn't differ from the opinion of the RSI committee or RSI training, unless it was an exceptional circumstance.
Just a question here. So you have most of our providers work more than one spot. And because, let's say this happens at one agency, it really can't be shared with the other agency's medical director to do the same. So somebody could be suspended at one agency but still be able to practice at another.
So we discussed this.
Oh, good.
And this is a fairly small region. We're all pretty close. Medical directors can discuss things amongst medical directors. And then the medical director from the other agency has to make a decision what they want to do.
But isn't that covered under CQI for the agency?
So
I mean,
Paramedic Smith does something egregious at one organization, and it gets discussed in QA or whatever. It goes back to the agency medical director, and that physician says, "Sorry, you're back to practice. They want you to go through remediation." Not a problem. Let's go practice at another organization. The one doctor can talk to the other doctor and say, "Listen, we've had problems with him. I recommend you not let him practice your organization until he also completes this remediation." It's up to the second doctor whether or not he or she wants to follow that recommendation.
Yeah, because the other thing I would recommend would be that we become a little more proactive about interviewing and credentialing process with agencies. So that, let's say somebody's practicing at agency A and they try to get a job at agency B after their privileges were taken away at another agency, that the phone call be made, to call those references from the former agency and to ask if there's any outstanding CQI issues or anything of that nature.
They can't
So
share
the region needs to be made aware of anything that's taken action at an agency. So if it starts at the agency, it needs to come from Remac, it needs to go to the other positions. If it starts at QA and goes back to the agency from the Remac QA or even the medical report, it needs to go to the other positions as well. There needs to be some communication. Just as the state does now, if the state takes action against someone on Rhode Island, we announce it at the Remac meeting. We call it our bad board rules. And we can just call it something different.
I didn't know if that information was protected based on the provider.
The actions itself, what they did, might be protected, but the fact that they are suspended, to the best of my knowledge, is not. And again, we need to maintain standard of care. So,
And the Remac also has an attorney that's been working with us on this. So
yeah,
it's,
we're working closely with him, although we'd like to try to avoid using the attorney as much as possible. If the question comes up, we certainly announce it out. And we also have to take to realize, although we were misled once. Sure. That won't happen again.
We're on the straight and narrow.
We're on the straight and narrow. Question over there.
Wasn't there a plan in place where if somebody from this region or somebody from another region had their privileges restricted or suspended, wasn't there a plan where the program agency of that region was supposed to notify other regions?
So we work very closely with Central New York. We share their database. So there was always a communication with Central New York. I'm not sure there was really very good communication with the other Remacs. Unless it goes to the state level, there really has not been that communication. One of the things this Remac could decide is that any action taken in the region could go to the state. Whether or not they want to take any action or another is another, but and that's probably something that even needs to be discussed at the state level. Should that be the case, so that there is better communication?
Could Tom Fortune's inbox anyway?
Yeah.
This was something, honestly, guys, the last 30 years, this never came up. This was brand new, and I think if you review the video from the state meetings, I think there were some eyes that got opened up. There were eyes, blue, brown, and green, that I had never seen in a meeting that opened up that day. So, it was an interesting meeting. One of my memorable state meetings. So we always, hey, you practice under my license, under your license. We've always felt that was the case, and the law says not necessarily. If you are the agency medical director, yes, those medics practice under your license. At the Remac level, no, we don't have that authority. We are really more of a consulting group. But that doesn't mean that we can't pursue and continue to pursue RSI.
Dr. Talbot's on the phone listening in.
Good morning.
Good morning, thank you.
Well, thank you. I hope it's someplace warm.
And yeah,
Oh, they got that little heater under the desk. Don't come back with a burn. So we were just discussing 1401. I think you and I have discussed it. We're basically going to continue to move ahead at the Remac level, working on maintaining quality, maintaining our RSI quality. We have a project in place with the advanced practice group to start working on SCT protocols for the region. And I would like to be able to take those SCT protocols, because this has been discussed at the state level too, to bring them to the state level at some point, so that there is at least a bar that needs to be reached within the state, across the state, for SCT. And that brings up another part of what I want to discuss today, is that right now in this region, we are desperately hurting for transporting our sicker and more seriously injured patients. We put out how many paramedics a year from Finger Lakes? 30, 40.
No, well, a year,
A
probably
year.
20. But they don't all practice in this region.
That's right. We put out 20 that don't practice. We run a critical care class every year, every spring, that we have another 15 to 25 in, and yet we keep losing our people. And there's lots of reasons. Some of them are going to other regions, which is fine, and I've got no problem with that. Some of them are going out of state, which is a real problem, and I think that's really where we're losing a lot of our good folks. And the reason for that is that our people are not getting paid properly, they're not getting appropriate benefits, and you look outside. Who wants to go outside in that cold? You know, if you work for the...
This is a survey that the state put out that deals with wage comparisons and such, just like you're talking about. There's copies up front there.
I don't know what it costs, but I don't even need to look at it. I can tell you we're not paying our folks enough, at least in the Fair Lakes region. And I've gone to multiple senators across the state over the years, and they don't want to hear about it. Anything that's going to increase taxes that might affect them negatively on votes, they just don't want to hear about it. So it comes back to us. We've got to try and come up with some solutions, and I don't have the answer. I think we need to go back to our hospital systems in the region, and I think they need to try and work on this somehow as a collaborative effort to help maintain people in our region to transport their sick and injured patients. You know, when the weather's good, we have Mercy Flight, we've got Light Vet, we've got Finger Lakes. When the weather's bad, we lose our air medical service. Certain hours of the day, certain days of the week, we don't have enough from our ground services. I have done several transports recently myself. I think Dr. Glick has done a couple. You know, and we can't be counted on. We've got clinical hours we've got to cover. This is a real problem. And I know several instances have come up where there have been problems transporting folks up to Rochester or Syracuse or other places, and trying to fashion something on the spur of the moment can create a lot of problems. Keep in mind, our ground paramedics have certain protocols. They have a scope of practice that they need to practice within. When they exceed that scope, they put themselves at risk. They're putting the patients at risk because they may or may not be trained to the level that we're asking them to practice at. EMTALA clearly identifies the sending physician as the person responsible for that patient until they arrive at the receiving facility. So just calling a paramedic, an ambulance, and saying, get this patient out of my ED quickly because they're too sick, I don't want to be responsible for them anymore, is not doing anyone any good. That patient may not be stable enough to go. They may not be being transported by the appropriate means, and the sending physician is still responsible for that patient until they arrive at the receiving facility. So we need to come up with some better plans. We need to have some plans in place. We need to work on some mutual aid agreements between air medicine and ground. We've got to work on staffing. And we've got to hit our hospital services, our hospital systems. We've got to hit our legislators again. And do I have the ability to do this by myself? No, I really don't. And I don't know how to do it. I'm just throwing this out there because somehow we have to make it happen. So I'm open to suggestions. But we've got to make some progress in this because we have patients that are suffering. We're putting some of our patients at risk, and the doctors are being put at risk, the hospitals are being put at risk, and our current providers are being put at risk. So this is a serious problem, and I think probably most of you in this room are aware of it, but I just for once wanted to hear myself talk and say it out loud, so it's been put on the record now. So if anyone's got some stuff they'd like to talk about, suggestions, comments, cases, I'm open. Sir.
Well, we've already incorporated an initiative like that we will, if we can't fly due to weather, and the sending physician requests equipment for transport, if we're able to go with an agency, we'll offer it up and we will go.
And who knows about that?
Well, you all know right now.
Okay, because I wasn't aware of that. We've done that on a couple of
We've been
occasions
doing it
with
with
Mercy
a
Flight,
few
but
hospitals,
it was sort of a spur of the moment, like, can you do it, can't you know?
Right.
I think we need to have something more in place. If you guys aren't flying, you know, can we have a system in place where you reach out to your closest transporting agency and say, hey, we're not flying, we're off, we're not going to be able to fly for the next 6 hours, whatever it is, but we're available for critical care transport. We've got to have something a little bit more secure. We've got to have something that's communicated. And then can we reach out, you know, maybe to Thompson, to Newark, to, you know, we don't have that many hospitals in the area. You know, you have a simple fax or something saying, hey, our air medical crew is available if you have a critical patient, and we'll update you when we're not available. You know, I know it's putting a burden on you guys, but if you're not flying,
Right.
you know, you're just sitting there. You know, I used to do a little bit with air medicine.
Yeah, and our aircom has been relaying that to the ED, the floors when they do call, that they are available. So
When they call for the air medical transport,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
but and that's to the floors, maybe the ICUs, but to the EDs go there. And can we somehow come up with a system?
definitely.
And we've been-
An automatic, we can do ground instead of just, no, we're not flying.
If you take your crews off
Well,
flight, could we update the? Yes,
Right.
that's what I'm looking for.
right.
Yeah.
And
Get
then,
on the radio and call the
That's-
ED. You guys, I'm sure you all have communications on 340 or 175. You can notify your EDs, fax. However, if we could get that in place, because then we could utilize one of your critical care air medical crews, we could get a BLS ambulance.
Yeah.
That would make a huge difference.
we've been working on that with the pilot project, the one call project with Soldier Sailors, Geneva, and Clifton. We can solidify that. Certainly, we can talk to Dr. Tallis some more, but we've been working through some of that.
And we've utilized it on a few occasions.
In Thompson
but
as
I
well. We've worked
think
with Canada
we
as well.
need to make it
Right.
more, when is it truly available? And we've got to come back on the time. Remember, if we're trying to transport someone up to the city for neurointerventional case or even for a cardiac cath, you know, those minutes are valuable. And taking a half hour to call around, we've lost time. So.
Usually when you get into projects like this, there's money involved. There's always money involved.
Well, there is. Unfortunately, it's the transporting agency that gets the billing. So somehow you have to have a plan in place ahead of time.
You have to have a billing agreement ahead of
Exactly.
time, and that's what we've been working on.
Yes.
Well, I'm
I-
more concerned about the time,
Right.
money. I'm saying there's programs out there that work other places. There's investment into it. There's programs that track all this stuff. They can tell you what's available, where it is. So it honestly is a 30-second look at a screen saying, "Oh, hey, they got one. It's available. I'm calling XYZ
See,
agency."
like a status board?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be something? What a unique concept, right?
We do have a flight vendor app that shows all that stuff.
And exactly. That's exactly what it is. I
Can you
mean,
make it available to the local hospitals? Can you tie in Mercy Flight? Can you tie in Finger Lakes,
but
North
who
Seneca?
updates that?
That's updated by aircraft daily.
So everybody's. I'm talking call.
Like minutes.
Right. That would just be your availability. If we need something that gets everybody's
We
availability.
need something
Right.
kind of everywhere.
Right.
But why can't the
No, I
region
mean,
put a core
yeah, we have
system
Flight Vector,
in
but I'm
for the
thinking like ground
hospitals
in.
that the hospitals can all buy into?
Well, why can't we?
Isn't that already in
I
place?
know that we've been talking about this for 5-6 years, and every time we approach this region, the 911 center is told, no way, not happening.
And we started to use the status board now in Wayne County.
And that's okay for Wayne County. We need something to cover our 4 counties.
Because I know that Ontario County and Wayne County will use it, but again, it's not, I don't update it, I update it daily, not like when I go on call. And like I said, Ontario County won't hear about it.
That should be a 911 update for all the 911s. I totally agree. They're the ones that know the status. You're in service. You're on the call.
Ask that guy.
I was wondering if that status board that already exists can be used by the other agencies. I mean, it's already available in Ontario County, Wayne County. The status board seems like it's working well. I see Finger Lakes uses it.
Jamie, the problem with that is it's sponsored by Melrose. The Monroe County 911 Center, they may not be receptive to Gates County or Seneca County because it has no bearing on Monroe County.
Well, it does,
Why?
because they're receiving our patients.
For my brief,
I'm open out, that's why you're here.
for my brief view of this, I mean, this is EMS does not look like it's built in the system up here for 911 centers. I can't talk about
EMS
the
is
other
not an
ones.
essential service in this state.
That I'm very aware of. But I
It's
think
quite essential in this region.
the Remac has a lot more pull than 1 or 2 agencies coming saying, "Hey, we want this." I think putting doctors up in front of legislators with paramedics standing behind them and saying something's got to change because, I mean, just in the last couple of weeks, we're getting phone calls left and right. Hey, we got to get patients out. I personally don't care who comes. To me, it's an emergency. And we talked about
At that
that.
point, in the patient's care, it makes no difference who transfers.
I totally agree.
Absolutely.
Let's get somebody and get them out.
And I will tell you that one of the cases that came up, and I've had no problem, and I hope Jimmy don't mind. It was a Wayne County case that they were called, they requested transportation. He was out of the scope of that paramedic. Although he had done specialty care in the past, he was not practicing in that scope in Wayne County. And I called Jim and I said, Jim, you know, what's going on here? This is a problem. And he says, well, I'll never let it happen again. I yelled at him. I said, no, you will, because if they get called, you're going to do it. That patient needs you then. We're going to do it. We're going to talk about it after. We're going to try and come up with a solution so it doesn't happen again.
It was presented as the last resort, and if the patient needed to get out of there now.
And
That was the only reason why we said yes. And apparently that wasn't completely accurate, which I didn't know, but I made the decision based on the information.
And it was the right decision at that time, and it did what the patient needed. But we've got to try and prevent that from happening in the future so that those situations don't come up. And we really need to work on this. This is an important project.
Absolutely. We're having issues daily about getting orders. You know,
So
it's-
I think, since we can't talk about this entirely at the Remac, I would like to put together a separate group. And I would like us to meet fairly soon to get this group going. Do you want to incorporate it into advanced practice?
Sure.
Since you guys have already got a fairly good group.
Tried to do that.
Well, let's bring,
We started on it before.
well, let's go down that road again.
SDT.
And I think the your medical services need to be involved. The current specialty care providers need to be involved. And we just need to get as many people involved. And yes, this is going to involve some planning, some begging, some pursuing legislative input funding. This has to happen because this problem's getting worse every single week. And I'll do as many of the transports as I can. I know Scott will. But I'm not going to be here forever. Scott's busy. And we can't get the specialty care transport medics trained and out there and keep them. As fast as we're putting them out there, they're leaving to go elsewhere. So this is a multi-pronged issue, and the solution is going to be multi-pronged as well. We have to have some form of communication where we can utilize what we have currently. We've got to be planning ahead to improve what we're going to have available. So please, this is high priority. Mercy Flight has offered to let us use their protocols. LifeNet, if we could maybe use yours too, come up with a full set of specialty care algorithms, protocols, policies that the region can work off of as part of it. The other solution is getting everyone together and knowing what's available so we can utilize them and not have to put a paramedic or service on the spot. Billing has got to be part of it. Med control has got to be part of it. Gee, if only we had someone that might have a little bit of involvement in billing.
There's standard templates. I know PWW has some
We've
standard
got the
templates that are
resources
easy
work with here. And
to modify.
we can do this. We just have to move ahead.
I make a suggestion.
Of course you can.
If we're going to do this advanced practice committee, and it's looking at all the overwhelming how are we going to get this to work, the protocols for LifeNet Mercy Flight, rather than setting this advanced practice committee meeting and hash back and forth whose protocols are used, can we have a couple of people compare the two, see what the differences are? If they're the same, you just adopt. Because we can't keep fighting at this meeting once a month as to what protocols we use.
Well, I assume it would probably be a combination of all of what they have.
I know, but with them only meeting once a quarter or whatever.
Well, I
don't wanna
think
waste-
this is going to take a little bit more than once a quarter.
But I don't want the time wasted on whose protocols.
Can one of our biggest issues and liability issues for our providers is right now they have nothing. And when you ask a physician who's responsible for that patient to the next hospital, it's like, well, yeah, just get them out of here, I'll sign whatever.
Most physicians don't understand the talent.
So I understand that, but it really puts our providers in jeopardy and our agencies in jeopardy. So is that something that the Remac could look at both their SCT protocols and say, we're fine with either or? Because I would like to walk into a physician saying, here's part of the transfers order, follow either of these protocols to give a baseline for our providers? Because right now they don't have any.
Well, they would have the option, as they have in the past, to follow the agency who's doing the transport, their protocols. They can give their own orders if they want, or they can rely on the agency's medical directive to do med control on that transport, as we've done in the air and on the ground.
If
Not
they
on the
sign
ground.
off, correct?
So I would be very cautious to say that XYZ agency, SCT, paramedic is going to utilize any specific medical protocol.
I don't think that's
Right.
that's
So
not what Al was
I'm
saying.
certainly in favor of us getting together
Yes.
and saying as a committee.
No.
that these would be
These
acceptable as
pieces,
protocols.
right.
We're not gonna put LifeNet and Mercy Life protocols and check them. These would now become, it would be a combination that the region has accepted. They would be the Finger Lakes Regional SCT protocols. Yes.
Do they have to go further? Do they have to go through the state, or that's something the region can do?
The region can come up with those protocols. They would have to go to the state, just like we used to, for medical standards.
Right.
And then to see that acceptance.
Okay.
Unless you can find a loophole with both of those protocols we previously approved by CMAC and SEMSCO.
That's a
that
different
where you-
level.
But they're air medical
Yeah, that's
protocols.
different level.
Right.
Unless your
Never
agency
mind.
medical
Agency
director
medical
says,
director.
these are my protocols.
They
for
can
my
sign
agency."
off and
Yes.
say, this is what we're going
Which is
with.
the quickest way
But
to adoption.
we want this to go through to the state level anyway, so. And the state's looking for this. They're desperate. They realize that this should have been done a long time ago. So if we can come up with them in the next few months, I mean, I'm not sure we can have this done by
Not going to get it in
March,
March, maybe June.
but possibly for June.
So Milrems has
I got a lot.
SCT protocols, so how's this
I got
going to
a lot
play
of
out?
protocols.
Let's-
We make ours, they make theirs.
Let's get
we,
theirs and look at them too.
You know?
We can easily-
We're going to look at everyone's protocols and come up with what we think fits our.
But
I
the
think
state's
it's a
only
really good point
one
to
though.
really look at the surrounding regions as
Yeah.
protocols. Because again, a lot of our paramedics in this region look back and forth, and if you're going to confuse them with a bunch of different what can't I, they really should mirror very closely what you're looking at.
Well, what we want to do is we want to fashion something similar to the BLS collaborative protocols and the ALS collaborative protocols, now SCT collaborative protocols.
Yeah.
And I would like to see them accepted across the state. We were, by the way, and Jason will talk about it briefly too, we were this close to having New York State collaborative protocols. 17 Remacs have signed on to the collaborative protocols. New York City was looking at it. New York City upped the ante and came back with their unified protocols. Despite multiple people saying that they thought it was a bad idea, they were voted in favor.
They're essentially the collaborative protocols with like 3 changes that get copied, as I said.
We were minutes away from having New York State collaborative protocols, but it may still happen again.
Once the handcuffs are on, it's tougher to get them off. That's they.
All right. Mike, we put a huge amount of stuff on the plate for advanced practice. Please reach out to the docs and Remac, those that are here, those that are not present. Let's get some more doc involvement. Let's get moving on this as soon as humanly possible.
I'll touch on it.
So the next,
Well, 100%, I'll be there.
I'll touch
just
on
while
it.
we're
I'll touch on it real quick.
so while we're on the topic, when is the next advanced practice meeting? Did we decide?
Let's get the advanced practice report.
So it was going to be March 4th, 2020 at 18:30, but obviously it's going to be earlier than that date. Actually, SAT protocols was top of my list as one subcommittee. The second tag group that we were going to discuss is the feasibility. It's actually going to tie into this now. Is the feasibility of regional medical control. I think after some conversations, I think regional medical control might be the best solution to solve our problems with medical control, especially the RSI providers. So,
Do you have any thoughts on how that might occur technically? Are you talking about cellular?
yes. Something to discuss in the group. I know that there's a clearinghouse method and also there's an on-call method when the doctor's on call for a certain period of time and they elect to be on call, you notify them.
Have you spoken to any docs?
Not yet, we haven't had a big discussion about it, which is my thoughts. I know in the past I've talked about it, especially with my frustrations, our frustrations with our side orders, especially when it's in New York County. But they've kind of been put to the side with other problems that were pressing. That's why I wanted to make a tag on it. Unless you don't think it's feasible, then you can focus our energies elsewhere.
I think this fits in with what we're talking about. I think we're talking about providing better, higher level care pre-hospital to and from hospitals in this region. I think this fits right in as part of that. So why not incorporate it into these discussions? And since you need to have physicians involved in that, since we want physicians involved in the other stuff we just talked about, this is as good a time as any to talk to them about that.
So I'll send out an email today when it's work. So Remac doctors and people about this.
John, make sure that we help him with emails. We will reach out to
Send it
as
to me,
as possible.
and then I'll send it to the group.
Are CC paramedics RSI certified?
Not all. So,
Don't make that.
so the way, right, and correct me about so the way it currently stands to become an RSI provider in this region, you complete basically an application to it. You have to have a recommendation from your agency medical director. You have to have no CQI, no CQ, issues. You meet XYZ requirements. You have to complete. I think you have to be in your second research.
I apologize. I should. I really apologize.
I do. I'm sorry.
I do not. There's some new faces here at the table, and I really apologize. Al Calfast is the new director of operations at Finger Lakes, and I apologize. So Al is brand new. What, a week?
Yeah, about 2.
Okay.
There's a lot in this county, man.
And everything. So I apologize. Can you send him the information, because we have this all outlined what the requirements are.
Okay.
And also Ed Major, although not brand new to the table, representing New York State Bureau of EMS. As most of you probably know, Ross Zastro has not retired. He was promoted out of the Bureau of EMS. That's what happens when you're either good or bad.
Exactly.
You get sent up a ladder. So he's now working with nursing homes and
long-term
hospitals.
care is a complaints manager and investigative coordinator. So we
great for Ross.
Yeah.
Ed feels terrible because now he's going to come to our meetings.
I'll be here temporarily until we are able to fill the Rochester position. But I do supervise.
6 months to 15 years.
Exactly.
6 months to
5
15 years.
10 years from now, I get retired.
So you may retire before the replacement is in place here. So just a couple new faces. And so anything that you have a question about, bring it up, because even though you're new, some of us are old and may still not have the answer, or like me, may have forgotten. So, and Scott's here to listen.
I'm just wondering what the difference is. I think you got critical care paramedics out there aren't RSI certified.
Unfortunately, that is a true statement, and we're trying very hard, because you don't want a critical care paramedic transporting a patient who is not RSI.
Gotcha.
It's just the timing, and we have a difficult time setting up RSI training. It's tough to get it going. So we're trying real hard, so it's not a problem, but it is a problem.
Maybe incorporate with the clearing process of specialty transport paramedics.
That's something to be discussed, and we need to get this group to convene and bring all of this up, and we'll have a huge list of issues, questions, concerns, and then we need to come up with some solutions to all of this. So,
I think at the very least for the CC class that's offered to the region through Finger Lakes, for those who their agency is approved to become RSI, that we at least offer the course tag teaming onto the end of the CC class.
sir.
Hi. Can I just get my RSI report real quick?
And by the way, Dr. Glick just volunteered to do the RSI class annually at the CC.
I was going to get to that. So actually, it's funny you should mention, we're actually, the committee actually meeting after this meeting. One of the things we're going to discuss is the status of the 2019 class. And hearing stuff that I've been hearing from the state meetings, conversations I've had with Dr. David Alford and Dr. Surratt, that it looks like focus is going to be changing away from regional-based to agency-based. And I don't know if that's the right solution or not, but I'm wondering if the way that this is going to be going is going to be putting the onus on the agency medical director for certification and credentialing of RSI providers, initial and continuous. I know that when we started this class, 9 years ago, the latest round, when we took the RSI class, before that it was pretty much, I hate to use the word free for all, but any provider that could be, that was cleared an hour or 10 years, if they had expressed an interest in becoming RSI, they would be able to do RSI. And they were noticing, at least the agency level, we're noticing there was a lot of significant QA issues, and especially on doing the procedure when other methods could have been in place to not do the procedure. So that's why the RSI class started, and we put 19 people through the first class. But we've noticed continuously there's scheduling problems, there's monetary problems, there is just communication problems. We've only put three classes out in 8 years. My concern always has been, I notice, being in EMS for 20 to 25 years, things go in a cyclical cycle. We're here, I don't want to be here again. But it's not fair to the patients, it's not fair to the providers that are supposed to be in this class, it's not fair to the providers that are RSI, it's not fair to the committee if we continuously spin our wheels and we tell providers, yes, you're going to be RSI, yes, you're going to take this class, and then we don't fulfill our role in facilitating them to be credentialed. And I'm hearing that we can be credentialed, it has to be the agency medical director. So I don't know where we stand. I feel it's going to be agency driven. Probably is the best course, especially since the majority of the positions in this room are medical directors and full medical directors of RSI agencies, which makes sense to just say if you know to do it. But that's probably a recommendation from the committee that will probably have to happen in the next Remac. I have updated the RSI manual again because there was a lot of things in there that were not covered in the past, such as reciprocity, such as what happens if there's an issue of restriction, what privileges, who does that. There never really was a formal application, both for provider and agency. And I've been doing a lot of research, not only with the DOH and DOH policies, but in other regional RSI programs. There's verification forms. There's a significant amount of QA committees that we don't have. Whether that's good for us or bad for us is not to be determined. Knock on wood, there hasn't been a significant RSI case in a very long time. But that's what we need to work on. So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is I pass this out to the RSI committee. We're going to discuss it briefly today, and then hopefully we can present it in March. But I would like to find a solution because there's a lot of providers that took this class who are very disgruntled and upset and are going to back out. In fact, I've lost 2 or 3 already who have no desire to do this procedure, and that's hurting this region.
What are they disgruntled about? What can we do to
Well,
turn
the
that around?
first thing they're disgruntled about was this class was supposed to be in March of 2019. November happened, and then we went through the class and there was no testing, and there has not been a resolution on testing yet.
So you need testing.
Yes.
All right.
You need to finish that.
We need to finish that class.
All right. Can you get together with me?
Yes.
Maybe not today because we're really busy today, but sometime this week, and let's come up with a testing date. I will give you a full day if we can get a place like that Mercy Flight,
You same with me.
Victor Farmington someplace. And
Yeah.
we'll need some mannequins, not a whole lot. And then if any of the other docs would like to be involved, we'll invite them. But I will promise you a full day. And we can start at 7 or 8 in the morning. And I promise I will not leave until we get everyone who wants to test tested. And we can do that within the next 2 months.
Okay.
Will that make some of them a little happier?
Yes.
Might be able to get Dr. Galvin involved. I don't know
I
how
would
region-wise,
love to.
but I'm sure
So we're seeing
how that works, but we could certainly, as our medical director, have him involved.
So Chris Collins
Based on-
is an amazing resource. He doesn't necessarily have to be part of this region. Now, I don't want to bring him in kicking, screaming.
Yeah.
But if he has an interest in being part of that,
Yeah.
I would be thrilled, and I think the group.
We have a
would be
contracted
there.
number of hours, so, I mean, we can, I'm not saying, you know, I don't mean that. We can, I can
You
talk with
get him
him.
involved, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Obviously scheduling is a little difficult. He's an
For
anesthesiologist,
once-
but.
For once in the 30 years I've been here, I think this is the best relationship we have with our local, our surrounding Remacs. Central New York, FLREMSC, both recognize our providers at the RSI level and are working better with us than they ever have. So let's not lose the momentum. And, you know, we have limited resources in this region. We all know that. We are all just stretched. And everyone sitting in this table goes beyond what they should be doing because they're already here. But that's not really an excuse. We still need to get these guys who want to get through this class. So I promise we will get through the class. Moving ahead, let's plan the next RSI class. It needs to be done. We will find resources to get it done somehow. And financially, personally, it's not my concern. I think a lot of people share that concern with me. If we reimburse them in some way, that's great. If we can't, we'll still find a way of doing it.
One of the other questions that has been brought up to me is the people that were approved for the RSI program but were not able to attend the didactic portion of the class. There's at least 5 people, the majority of them in the ambulance, that were
Yes.
that were
They were in another class. They were,
correct.
yeah.
There's never been provision for people that could not make the testing game to be tested. So basically, some people had gone through the class but couldn't make the testing game. They were put to go until they came to our side.
So let's come up with 2 testing days. Something like maybe like a Saturday and like a Tuesday or Wednesday, something along the line. So we can, with enough notice so that everyone needs to be tested, we pick one of those 2.
Will the ones that couldn't attend the last session need to go to a didactic and practice session because they missed that?
If they missed if they didn't attend the lectures,
Yes.
they need to make a
lecture and
lecture.
practice for that one day.
Can we host a day? I'll set a day. I'll work with these guys. We'll put it out for everybody. We'll find the instructors.
I'll reach out to Dr. Sarah as well, since he's right now the chairman of the.
Yes, and
Okay.
I in no way am trying to supersede him because I can't do what he has done. He has done a fantastic job. For those of you that haven't, most everyone here I think has been around long enough to know that before this current RSI program was in place with Finger Lakes, it really was the Wild West. There were RSIs going on left and right with a lot of QA issues. We have cut the number of RSIs in this region to a fraction of what they used to be.
It was 65, 70%.
Yeah, and the ones that are being done in appropriate patients with appropriate means with good outcomes.
And I don't know if any significant RSI QA issues, at least in the past 3 years.
Maybe not a lot of things we can brag about in this region. We can brag about our RSI program. I don't think there's any other state that can compete with us. So we need to keep that going. And a big part of that, besides you folks who've done great, has been Dr. Surratt. So I in no means want to take this away or insult him or do anything. However, I will help him to follow what he has set up in place so we can get this done. Because I know he has a lot of things on his plate too, including the baby.
And I think that's why I would myself as the chairman of the committee would love more position presidents on that committee so that it doesn't fall on Dr. Surratt always, or doesn't fall on you always. I know that my medical...
It won't fall on me always because I'm out of here.
But it did fall. You're the regional medical director. I know that my medical director, Ryan Bradker, has stepped up, and there's a couple of doctors that have stepped up. Dr. Good stepped up. We need that presence. We need that presence on the advanced practice committee as well.
There may be docs out there that don't even realize that we need their assistance, and maybe we need to reach out again to docs in the region. They may not even know that we're looking for help.
I'm trying.
And I've been looking for one of the things through my agency that I'm trying to find is doctors that will help us because we need voices on Remac, we need voices on committees, especially my two committees and other committees, and the SET committee. We just need to get more participation. I don't want burden falling on having one or two people.
Physicians in general, especially in emergency medicine, are busy. If you speak up and get a little pushier, you might get us to respond a little bit. Worst that can happen is someone's just going to tell you to shut up. But that, well, when's the last time one of our doctors told you to shut up?
About an hour.
Get a little pushier and see if you can get some of us involved.
I will.
Is there an outline that any physician can use, any medical director can use to teach this course, or is he the only one that teaches this class?
So there are, the committee, Jim and I have materials, we have DAX materials. There was a test that we county created that we modified, have to modify a little more. There are skill sheets and scenarios that I created for class number 2.
Yeah,
So if we,
They're out there.
Jamie has done, Dr. Surratt has done such a great job in teaching this class. I did one a year or two ago, and I've got to be honest, I didn't know where she goes to this class. I mean, he's really honed it down.
So, without being specific, there are other regions that I've worked with, not too far away. The way they handle RSI is they have only left it to agency medical director, but you have to use the Remac issue PowerPoint,
That's kind
which is not exactly what I would present. But I was forced to use that material because that was a requirement of the region. If I could give any bit of advice to this, I think maybe a better way to do that, if we're going to head in that direction, is that medical directors or presenters, past and present, that have participated in the RSI course, maybe we make a depository of the PowerPoints that the medical directors can use in their agency. They can personalize it as they wish to make their materials so that they're comfortable presenting it and using it. But I mean, I would share the PowerPoints that I've made. I'm sure that you would share the PowerPoints you've made. Matt would share his, I'm sure. We would, and
The current group of agencies that do RSI are medical directed by 3 of them.
So 4.
4. Okay.
Dr. David has 3.
I've got Canandaigua, part of Finger Lakes. What's doing RSI?
So Dr. Brecker, my medical director.
Record's yours next.
3. Talbot's North Seneca's. Talbot's yours, right?
I have Sinclair.
Dr. Sinclair. There's Dr. Surratt.
Nava's mine. So I said, well, but Nava's not doing RSI now.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Two things that I have, Dr. Bliff, if we're talking about the same region, I have staff do that, RSI, PowerPoint, I can assure you that Dr. Surratt is about 100 times better than that. But the second thing is that maybe it might be beneficial for some of the Remac physicians to at least sit through the class, possibly take the class, and just see what it entails, and then they can probably teach it.
Well, we have another option here too. Let's put together an RSI class, bring in the appropriate people to give it, and let's videotape it and have it available to our providers. I don't Did we ever try
Some
that?
of the lecture sessions we did in the last class, the previous class. The testing in the last class, not this current one we need to finish. Yeah, went well. We had 4 docs there that day. It was a great lecture in the morning, then practice, then testing, and that's the way we tried to get it done this time, but we just couldn't get enough docs there and get it finished.
Well, that's why if we can do the didactics, maybe have these, even if we still do some lectures in person, these guys have an opportunity to look at some of this material ahead of time. So that now when they hear the person talk, okay, they're hearing it for the second time. The hands-on has got to be hands-on. I mean, that's got to be, we can't get rid of that about the testing.
So I think we're running a little bit away from what the initial thought process when this whole RSI thing started 9-10 years ago was that it was going to have physician oversight and be provider led. And for the last probably 3, 4, 5 years, it's been more focused on the docs doing all the education and the hands-on labs, and the longtime RSI providers have not been a resource that's been tapped. So if we're concerned about having the availability of people, let's reach out to our senior RSI providers.
Yes, we've been looking to subtract that. It was like, I had what, 3 or 4 the last class. I mean, we have tried to do this provider based and it just hasn't, for some reason or other, it's fallen through the cracks.
Because
Part of the committee, we made it mandatory that agencies that are part of the RSI committee, they have to help. I can't do it alone. She can't do it alone. You know, we still can't. We're making it mandatory. You know, we still don't get agencies that come. We still pay agencies.
what do you need from this group to make this happen?
A testing date.
We got to finish this class.
Yeah, a testing date. I need a testing date for this class.
Okay, so our goals are, let's finish this class and let's work on the next class. What do you need from this group
From the next class,
to get both of those goals accomplished?
I need a testing date. I need providers from.
I will promise you 2 testing dates,
Okay.
and I will get some people to help you.
Chris said he did verify he will help, so we just have to work his schedule wise, but he's willing to help.
Okay.
And then
Well, he has occasional days off. I have his calendar, so we can.
And then for the next class, once the committee meets, as soon as we end this meeting, I'll know what we need for the next class, and then we all know to this body what we need.
Okay.
Mike, I won't be able to do the meeting after this one.
Okay.
I'll be no dates. I will be there for all.
Mike, you let this group know what you need to get through these next 2 testing dates, finish up the 1 class, and get the next class totally done. You tell us what you need, and somehow we will come up with it. Okay?
Yes, sir.
I promise personally to do it, and I will ask and not beg. Well, beg. But we'll get some help.
Okay.
All right. And we have the possibility of using Chris Galton. Listen, we're working closer with some of our other regions. Okay, there's some good resources around us. There's docs like Jeremy Cushman. There's docs like Chris Folger out of Central New York that love to do this stuff. And I'm willing to bet if we put out an invitation, we get some takers. So you tell us what you need when you need it, and let's get it done. And we'll start talking about it.
Chris said he would bring others, so Jeremy and
Like I
et cetera.
said,
So
like I said, I will have it.
We can figure out.
Jack, 2 things. I think it's appropriate to also, while we're doing this whole process, is all the RSI documents need to be pushed out to the Remac medical directors for review and comment.
That's gonna happen as soon as
We
we
need to, the Remacs have the ability to set a system standard, not necessarily credential, but we could set a minimum system standard. So we could set that bar, right? If the doctors go above it, so be it. But they can't go below it. So we need to create the program and get that bar, the system bar, for the training set on one level.
There you go. We're the doctors listening to you. Right, and then utilizing the agency medical directors to enforce it.
However the committee ends up deciding.
Still well within the Remac purview to do something system-wide.
Mike, I know it's a lot for you, but please come through with the requests, and I promise we'll fulfill.
Like I said, the committee will meet. But not all the agencies are here. That's that. We'll go through it. People that are here will go through it. We'll have an answer.
Let us know what you need. Yeah, but also at the top of the priority is how do we take care of our specialty requiring patients as soon as possible? Whatever we need to do as soon as possible. Then we'll take some very popular list.
That's my agenda for the meeting. That's top.
Okay, so it's at the top of the agenda. All right, program agency coordinator.
So I'm going to keep it short and sweet because that
Okay.
was
Yeah, sure.
lengthy. So reminder, our conference is coming up It's going to be February 21st, 22nd, 23rd. It's a full day of course, the Saturday and Sunday are full day course offerings. The Friday evening, we just scheduled a presentation, a 1-hour presentation on the Medicare cost data, stuff that's going out for ambulance agencies. If you're not affected yet, you will be. So we have a presentation being put on Friday evening from 6 to 7. With that, followed by Mark Horstrom's policy suggestion, policy review course that evening. I think we got a pretty good lineup. Encourage your folks to come attend to get a whole gamut of CMUs that weekend.
Please get the word out. We always have a good turnout, but you know, over the years, I think we've seen turnouts dropping at these things. Let's get a good turnout this year. What else you got?
Well, that's it for right now.
All right. Anything else? Sorry.
I've got a couple of things, but I want to add on to Jonathan. We do have a very good turnout that comes to this. The only other issue is a lot of the agencies are in the CME program where they do everything online. A lot of larger agencies, and we do not see any participation locally from a lot of those agencies. We have a lot of different things that we offer. There's thing about the Medicare, different topics that really have significance, whether we did trafficking like we did last year and different things like that, that not necessarily do you get in the conference. So I'm a big fan of those guys. So, moving on, Finger Lakes Community College and the paramedic program. We have 20 who are scheduled to test on May 20th if they get their capstone done. They had to have their phase 2 done by yesterday, turned their books in last night, and they are off to their capstone. So we have 20 new ones who started on January 9th to graduate on May 21st. Our regular EMT and AEMT fall classes are done except for the EMT that does not finish until April. Spring classes are up and starting. She's chatting up with that because the class doesn't know the facility and to go to caveat with this, with all this airway stuff that we're doing, I just want to let everyone know that we are doing the difficult airway course on April 3rd and 4th. Here it is part of the paramedic program, but there will be openings. We usually advertise out. And again, I have to tell you, we get very little interest from the region. The CCMPP program, that class starts February 21st and will test on April 4th in Victor. That is a Friday and Saturday from 8 until 5:30 for the 6 or 7 weeks that it goes. Anyone's interested, the applications are up. So if you have anybody who's truly interested in RSI, I really am. Dr. David Off has helped us do the difficult airway for I don't know forever now that we've done it. He actually comes and teach, and I don't know what it is a good program. I just sat here and thought about it when we were talking about lectures and that, but the PowerPoints are trademarks, so I can't do much with that.
Yeah.
So, but again, they go through, it's basically all difficult airway on coverage I would avoid doing an RSI.
Difficult airway is which days?
3rd and 4th.
I may need some help on the 4th.
Yeah, because you're testing the CC.
I'm testing, the CC is the final test date. So I'll be there on the 3rd, but I can use this really helpful. Hey, if anyone wants to help on the 3rd, feel free. I mean, this is a tremendous class. I love this class, and it is laid out so well. This is a national class, actually international class. It's offered in Canada. I think it's given overseas as well. This is for all levels, guys. This is whether you're a basic or you're a physician. This is a great class to take. So, anyone that's available the 3rd, would be great. The 4th, I definitely need some help because I'm testing out the critical care class on the 4th.
I could probably help them.
That would be great. They would love to have that. They do enjoy it too.
Yeah.
Thank you. If anyone else is available, even if you've got guys who got a couple hours, just want to come out and play with some pig traits and get some, it's just a great experience. So, all right. Thank you.
No, that's year we were a little short on a couple of instructors, and Karen got us trying light nicely very quick notice. I'm like, we're desperately filled. So, but usually they come out. Jen Oshie is part of that program, as a Ted Freeborn solution.
And Ted is phenomenal. I love working with him.
But
Yeah, you got anyone that can come out, I think would really enjoy that.
So that's my report.
All right. Do you have anything more? You kind of included RSI, everything in there together. So you're all good?
So do we have a new date for the advanced practice committee? Or you said we had to move it up?
Working on it. In the meantime, Mercy Light Central, you guys have got some dates coming up?
Yes, quickly, we did set the date for our spring education day. This is always well attended. In fact, we've outgrown the Finger Lakes track site, so we'll be at Casa Larga this year, Friday, May 8th. So good for you. And yeah, usually spots go fast, but we'll have a little more space to work with this year. So that's Friday, May 8th. There's some flyers over here on the table, and I did leave some of the new 2020 calendars if anyone wants one.
Cool. Like that?
Sure. So at the 712 hangar in Seneca Falls, we're having an open house on the 27th of March, 7 p.m. We'll also do utilization review class there, so everyone's welcome to attend that. Also, keep in mind, actually our Gmail account, LifeNet712 Gmail, if you're interested in LC classes, feel free to give us a shout and we'll set you up. We just finished in December our CAMES review for our continued accreditation, and the recommendation is to go forward, which votes, I believe, this month, continued accreditation for another 3 years. We're planning dates for our second annual Critical Care Transport Conference, still to be at Del Lago. Seems to be the best deal right now, and we're looking at September dates for that again, but we don't want to conflict with any vital sign or
Schedules are tough.
Yeah, and that's a 2-day conference. We're planning again, so day 1 will be all lecture stuff, critical care oriented, and then day 2 will be the wonderful Airway House of Horrors.
Which was excellent.
Which was, yes. And we are expanding the scope of that from not just adults to also people populations. So it'll be pretty intense. We're looking forward to that. And we're still working with the state on this blood product stuff. It's a nightmare to try and get it.
So just a
we
quick
have all
update with
logistics
the
in
blood
place.
product. Apparently that's still moving forward at the bureau level.
Yeah.
The individual from Wadsworth that was in charge of that program and issuing the letters of approval has retired.
Yeah.
See, and I've never been a very religious person, but my prayers did get answered.
So they're just awaiting somebody else to pick up that.
Yeah, well, with our latest discussions with the state, I mean, it's fun because we have a very expensive lunch cooler right now. But they basically say you need an independent pathologist for every 3 locations. So kind of we're looking to hire pathologists essentially for us.
I think we would all be very happy, not even stocking the blood products on board, but just being able to utilize the blood products that are already started.
Yes.
The way we did for many years, very successfully.
It's very frustrating to have our sister airship in Pennsylvania be able to do everything with blood products and sit here with New York State.
It is tough. Keep in mind, and I've said this before, you can transport blood products on a patient in New York State today. If needed in a dire emergency, the blood bank just needs to notify Wadsworth that is occurring.
Yeah.
So don't make your patients suffer. We're not promoting that at all. The state approves that.
There's supposedly a form, though.
There is supposedly a form on the internet. I have seen it.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, that sample form that is on the internet is actually a prior revision that was never approved by the state. And then the latest revision was removed from the website.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's,
So it sounds like there's, so just do it.
I
I
thought
just
it
pick
was
up the
more
phone and call Wadsworth and say, hey, this is
I
what we're
have,
doing.
and again, now she's retired, so it took me 2 months to get her to return.
We have to do what we have to for our patients. That's the bottom line.
And we also took delivery of our cardio safe balloon pump this month. So we are now independent balloon pump transfers, and after 28 hours of education with Viva and 16 hours of in-house and online training, all of our clinicians are set to go. So
you guys on the spot. Any items to report?
Chief Al.
At least you see my condolences. Looking forward to working with everybody.
Outcomes from the Central New York region.
Lots of meetings coming.
So, interested in having his input. Not that we want to move towards Central New York's philosophy, but
It's okay, either do I.
and Ed, anything
No, this
from
is
the
a
state?
public meeting.
I think that there will be the ambulance transfusion information is nearly completed, is my understanding. So, and as I understand what they're doing is they're going to work with the program agency to coordinate the blood bank contracts, and then have the agencies work with, or two ways to do it. You can independently do it, but everybody's been pursuing that method, and then they're moving towards having the program agencies contract with the blood banks and have them be the central point of contact, so that the agency would only have to go to the program agency to supposedly simplify the process. Okay, they're in the final stages of that, and as I say, final stages, it's the state. So I don't know if we meet by the next meeting or not, but they say that stuff is going to be republished. That policy statement is going to be updated, and we have given our final revisions several times. It's been reviewed by council and what have you. So that supposedly you'll see that change, but I don't know the timeline on that. I never want to the timeline because when the state they may come up with something totally different with the individual who had retired. But the Bureau has been working with them to move that process forward. So mutual aid, policy statement 1206 does remain in effect. The Bureau has done some interim revisions to the mutual aid policy. That policy was going up through the approval process. We put a stop on that, and they're actually going to try to incorporate the revised mutual aid requirements into regulations going forward. So that's in progress. Obviously, we'll be open to public comment and those kind of components as that proceeds. But we were going to issue a policy statement on that, but as you know, we're trying to convert more things towards the regulatory side and strictly policy, which I think is momentum related to that.
Safe.
Yeah, so, and that's it. If anybody has any questions, you can answer them. But other than that, everything else I look forward to working with you, and I'll continue to be as responsive as I can. Keep in mind that, our Bureau, we're so robustly staffed. It's myself and Don Trepez, we've got 17 counties, and, so it's a little bit tougher. We're relying a little bit on the Central New York region and certainly the Central Office to assist us in working projects or whatever. But it's been a busy period.
We appreciate your 30-hour days, your 48 months, and
But thank you all.
vacation schedule for 2040 something. But yeah, the ambulance transfusion service policy, I suspect we'll see this year. I really do.
Yeah, I think that's coming.
But I think that's just going to cover the transport of blood that's already been started. But you guys are talking about carrying the blood product.
I understand what you're
And that's going to be something that you guys got to pick up on.
I think it's great. It's the right thing to do. But it's
The other states.
Are you unified with the?
It's tough. It's a tough project to
You're
pick up.
unified with the other medical, or just doing that independent?
Well, so Air Methods as a whole has done this across the country. New York State's the protocol they've got in place for statewide.
It's the right thing to do.
And just about the time that you do get that in place, we will have a new product on the market that will not require refrigeration, that will not cause any
Keep your lunch cool.
Just add sterile water and you will have yours.
Be awesome. You got to start full of energy.
That'll come eventually. All right, old business, which is really no longer old business. Red light standards got approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank God, finally.
Yes, that was a,
It was
New
actually a
business.
pretty quick process.
for what we presented, it was.
So put that on the,
So it was a couple agencies had approached me about whether or how strongly the Remac doctors felt about carrying the ibuprofen and the acetaminophen or as a mandate versus being an elective drug to carry in your formulary. Because
Dr. Talbot's still online there?
Dr. Taylor, are you still there? He's still connected.
I don't hear you.
John, I'm here.
Because this really, I think, I mean, obviously it affects our patients. It doesn't affect our providers, but it affects the hospitals, the receiving hospitals. So I think they need to have some input into this. So it's a discussion because we have an option of having it service by service or agency by agency, I guess is the proper term,
Correct.
or across the boards. And if we decide we want to do it across the boards as a Remac, we have no way of really regulating that gets done. Let's go back to the individual agencies.
As it stands right now, it's listed as a required medications for your formulary.
Is it part? It was required in the collaborative. This wasn't one of those. That was listed.
It was required in the collaborative ALS update,
Which technically we've already approved.
which we've done, right? And it's being brought for further discussion. Dr. Talbot, do you have an opinion on that?
That needs to be involved, or
So ibuprofen is being mandated for the agencies?
Technically
Correct.
We've already mandated like something.
And Tylenol.
I think it sounds reasonable to have it on the rigs. Does anyone else have strong feelings?
I'm getting some head nods saying yes.
Just for fever control or just pain control? too?
Also, think.
Yeah. Could cut down on opioid use.
Well, that was why this got pushed. It was pushed, number one, to primarily cut down on opiate use, absolutely. And also, we've been supporting a lot of kids that have fevers that don't really need to come to pills. They come to the emergency room, they're not getting treated, waiting for sitting up there for minutes to hours. Then they come and they tie up a room. If they're treated in round with an appropriate dose of Tylenol and or morphine, by the time they hit the room, we see them very febrile. We examine them. We've been really reducing some of these times that they spent in the emergency room. I thought this was a great idea with minimal, if any, downside, other than the expense really to the agencies and education.
And realistically, the spirit behind it, when we put it together, when we included it in the collaboratives at the AEMT level on up, there was actually discussion about putting it in the BLS protocols, but we held off pending the 2020 BLS scope of practice. But we included that on the AEMT on up because realistically, at the AEMT level, unless you've got thousands of extra dollars laying around for nitrous oxide, they have nothing else to utilize for analgesia. And I realize the AEMT level isn't prominent in this region, but the reason that it's mandated in the collaboratives is realistically for that AEMT level and also to cut down on the lower level opiate uses for my belly hurts or I have a headache or something like that. When really our only option is either Toradol or IBIM or IN opiates. I think this is a better option, and frankly, they're not that expensive. I can go to Walgreens and buy them right now, so there's no reason we shouldn't get a problem.
I think there's a lot of good we can offer and truly minimal downside. I mean, if we inadvertently give Tylenol and or Motrin to a patient who is has a perforated bowel, who has an intracerebral bleed, who's even pregnant, are we seriously doing any harm to that patient with one dose of antibiotics? I don't think so. So I just don't see a downside to it.
I think they have to, not to be funny, but also get a quality temperature in somebody before, if you give it for fever control, just to make sure we have a
Most
reliable.
ambulances now are carrying either topical or they're carrying something.
Yeah. Well, but just, so that this way nobody questions the presence or absence of fever. Yeah. And is this, so are they carrying liquid Tylenol and liquid Motrin?
Yeah.
Versus, okay.
So Donna's saying that not every agency is capable of taking the temperature. So maybe as part of our approval in the region to go in that direction, we should have.
If you're carrying it, then you should have it.
Exactly. And it can be as simple as the little strip across the forehead. I mean, whatever it is, just to document that there's a fever.
Does the protocol have a minimum age?
Yes.
Yes.
It does.
One or two,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, there's a point of emphasis about not giving it to the younger, for below 1 year old, I believe it was.
It's either one or two.
Yeah, the only scenario I could think of is I wouldn't want, like a 2-month-old, and then there's a question.
No, it's certainly 12 months or higher. I
Yeah.
can say that with certainty. It's not.
Pediatric patient greater than 100.4, suspected infection, did not have dose within the last 4 hours. This is for acetaminophen. If greater than 60 days old, may have tolerate all fluid considered what we call it. And then it's a weight-based chart for the Thailand over 60 days.
So it is saying over 60 days, ibuprofen is an option.
Ibuprofen is only for the 6 months, sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
So 60 days on the Tylenol, and I actually push to reduce that because I don't know about you, I give ibuprofen to younger kids.
I do.
I do
just know
weight-based. I think most of us
Christians
do.
are very anti, and so maybe that's a call.
And that was why that call was.
Yeah, that was a pushback we got from
Yeah.
EMSC, if I remember.
So if you're over 60 days, you can get Tylenol, weight-based, and if you're over 6 months, you can get ibuprofen and Tylenol, weight-based.
I think we started off at a year. I got brought down as EMSC.
Yeah, my guess is that will change. And of course, there's still always the medical control. Anyone have any opposition? So we need a motion to follow the climate program.
Already did that.
Requirement.
Yes, with requirement.
It's already put out,
We
so
adopted
I'm
the
not sure you
protocol
need a
since
motion.
It's
It's just-
and we're adding
It's just-
temperature.
Confirming that it's mandatory for agencies.
Yeah, it's confirming that,
But they have to, the docs have to be able to, they have to be capable of checking that. Dr. Talbot's still there?
are you
Yes,
good with?
I'm in agreement with that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so that is, I think we're all in agreement on that. That's great. Any CAD applications? Somebody got any CAD applications?
Yes, Morgan Stanley of Western New York CAD program is complete. And once you sign it, I have one for Finger Lakes Gaming and racetrack as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, Fisher's Fire Department.
Yep. So received their application for increasing their level of service from the EMT level to the paramedic level.
First responder.
First response, correct. ALS first response. What we're bringing in here, all the docs should have got this in their email for review. What this is, what we're doing today is, if it's acceptable with the doctors, we need a provisional approval for 90 days to allow them to proceed further with their application process.
So Fisher's wants to go from ALS to paramedic first responder, which means they're going to add controlled substances. They can't become paramedic first responders until they get their controlled substances, but they can't go after the controlled substances certificate until they get a provisionary approval from the Remac. This has nothing to do with CONs. This is only their level of care. It's awkward, and after 30 years, I think I finally almost understand it, which means it's definitely time for me to leave. I now know I have suffered permanent brain damage. How you do it, Ed, I have no idea. So we need from this group a provisional approval for them to move from ALS to paramedic and go after their controlled substance.
Basically, ALS FLREMSC.
Right. Now, once they get their controlled substance certificate, based on our approval, they can become paramedic first
Yeah.
responders.
So what I would ask for you to do is, once you obtain that information, if you can then in turn bring back your plan, your controlled substance plan, and basically your ALS plan.
Which I think we already have.
What we have is their equipment list.
Did you submit your?
Our tentative controlled substance agent has just, since this was submitted to the Remac, has submitted it to Dr. David Up, because he is also our agency medical director, to sign those documents. So we have the full final drafts pending final signatures from Dr. David Up and the pharmacy at Thompson.
So you saw it, not this.
I thought everyone had. I apologize. And now the pharmacy at Thompson is undergoing a change. Do they have a new head pharmacist?
Yes.
Yeah, so one of our paramedics, Dan Conklin, is planned to be our CS
Right.
agent. So he has communicated with them and has the whole contract drafted and ready to be signed.
Okay, because I just saw that he's moving up to Highland. So I want to make sure that doesn't.
They announced it yesterday.
Okay. But they have some replacement in there on the same page with those others.
Hey, Chris.
Who's the new pharmacist? Do you know?
Deidre?
Was she there previously? Okay, I don't recognize the name. You're losing a good man. I've worked with him for years.
Did you? Yes.
He's been very EMS savvy. But good move for him. All right, so we're looking for any discussion on this third one.
My president couldn't be here, so I'm speaking on behalf of the board of directors. And all he wants me to say is that they just wanted to respectfully submit our previous objections. That's all.
Thank you, Mike, for passing on Jim's wishes.
I'm just curious about why you guys decided to move on.
Mainly from what the state direction going forward in August-ish, and how the state works, they're doing away with that level of the AMT agency, from what I understand, or
For the intubation.
for the intubation. The AMT skills are going down, so it drops us below what we currently can do.
Gotcha.
So last year's budget, we had enough money to get the equipment ordered so we can be ready for the change in scale or scope of practice.
And our transition, I know you weren't here last year, so our transition to AEP just occurred in May of this past.
So you get it, they take it away from you, so now you got to go higher. I gotcha.
We got settled in. We got
Record prodded them to go paramedic from the beginning.
Yeah, it was a slow, but we invested with the video laryngoscopes, and we really have a nice program running, so we certainly don't want to go backwards.
All right, any other discussion? You want to voice Jim's opposition a second time? Or?
Still not told.
You could voice it strenuous.
It's entirely discouraged. That's our position.
All right, need a roll call vote for this, I think. So, who do we have? What's that? Just positions, actually. Is Dr. Talbot still there?
Yep, Dr. Talbot,
Yes.
Dr. Michelin,
Yes.
Dr. Glick,
Yes.
Dr. David.
I'm confused myself.
Okay.
So it passed? All right. Does anyone have anything else that they'd like to bring forth to this group?
I do.
You do?
I do. Just one quick
Oh,
thing.
my goodness.
No, just one quick thing, because I've been asked on several occasions now lately.
Did you bring lunch?
No, I didn't. So the situation is, and some of the American Heart and different things like that, and I know we've discussed it in this area before, is to the fact that they are recommending pediatric size BBMs with an adult size mask, blah, blah, blah. And we had voted or decided here we were going to stick with the adult BBM. The problem we have now is suppliers are providing a small adult and a large adult. So my questions are, do we want a small adult or a large adult size BBM? Because all it says on Part 800 is it has to be an adult BBM. So the questions I'm getting is, will a small one work or do I have to have a large?
What's the CC volume of delivery on the small adult?
If you look on any of the advertising, it does not have. All it says is small.
So their sales in large adult BBM started dropping, so they had to come up with new ones.
Yeah. So we've had this discussion, and we actually changed at Fair Lakes to pediatric and blue bags or a pediatric bag valve, sorry. And instead of getting pediatric, we got neonatal. And it just didn't work when you were trying to ventilate an adult with neonatal-sized bags. And then we came back to the discussion, and we said, you know, we recognize there's a problem with inadvertent hyperventilation. And we tried to come up with a quick fix. And the more we spoke about it, we said, you know what? No, not a quick fix. Train people to do it properly. So my final word on this, and then we'll go around on this thing, is instead of coming up with a quick fix, smaller, adult, larger peds, train people to do it properly. Use the right amount of volume, the right rate. Let's do it right instead of finding a quick fix to try and fix it. Because as we come up with quick fixes, someone else will say, let's do this instead of this. Let's just follow the American heart attack. That's my opinion.
So as your party 100 inspection, what are you going to do?
Yeah, so when we still on the code is when we look for PBMs, we look for 2 masks for the adult, okay? We like them to be separate sizes, however, we do accept if they've got 2 different PBMs, I don't care if it's in the bag or wherever it is, as long as you've got 2 adult PBMs. We look for a neonate, an infant, and a child mask for the pediatric sizes, okay? You can have 3 different PBMs, you can have one with the different 3 different sizes. So we look for 3 different sizes in the peds and 2 different sizes, or 2 adult masks in the adult size. So that's what we're looking for. And those items, we consider those a critical fail if you don't have them. So.
But you're not looking at the volumes on the outputs.
We just look, it says it's adult, it's an adult. We still will accept a CPR mask or something as that second mask for the adult. We just generally look for 2 PDMs for adults.
So my answer to them is going to be I don't care.
So regionally,
whether they use a small or a large.
I think the answer should be to go with standard bag valve mask adult size.
And just to give you a little bit of a little insight on where Part 800's revamp is going, the proposed item under airway and oxygen equipment, sudden cardiac arrest resuscitation equipment, item 1, a manually operated self-refilling adult-sized bag valve mask ventilation device capable of operating with oxygen enrichment and clear adult-sized masks with air cushion. New addition to that, 1 clear medium and 1 clear large adult mask are required, so the size hasn't changed.
Of the bag.
Of the bag itself, correct.
Just the masks.
Just the masks, yep.
And that standard bag valve mask volume is a liter?
I've seen manufacturers anywhere from 1,000 mLs to 1,500 mLs.
Yeah.
Dr. David, we use a small adult that has a 1,000 cc.
Okay.
The large adult's at 1,500.
Okay. I think
I
the key here is educating people to get a good seal and get good chest rise at the BLS level. About that, obviously also looking at pulse oximetry.
Hence one of our lectures at the conference on BLS airway management.
Who's doing that?
The one and only.
And that was what brought that up. That's why we're doing that. We're just going to have BLS providers come up and we're going to look at the bag valve mask and automatically, and we're just going to practice ventilation. Maybe a couple of adjuncts. So that which in pieces, absolutely.
So the new American, I forget the acronym for it, but the new American Heart continuing like CPR education and ACLS, where you go on a computer and you do skills like every
RQI.
like what's it called?
RQI.
RQI. Have any of the EMS agencies started doing that? So you guys are doing it,
Yeah.
and then is it a large cost?
I couldn't speak to the cost of it because I didn't buy the stuff. And thank you very much for having a checkbook.
It's not cheap.
So it is a big out.
Even if you're at top of this floor.
Okay.
But each base has the adult pediatric and feedback on it. So I don't know what the cost of it is there.
Are you pleased with it?
We actually just rolled it out this year, so I will abstain from any opinion at this point.
There's a learning curve.
It is a little.
Yeah.
I think it depends on how many RQI licenses you have to purchase. Really is another concern with that.
And how many agencies are leaving practice equipment out, like in their crew rooms and stuff, you know, the duty rooms, you know? I mean, I that was one of the fun things, you know, when it was in EMS, you know, especially if you have students coming through, you know, practicing.
Right now has an entire patient kit set upstairs next to the couch.
Yeah.
Everyone just like
I still like the concept of having the mannequin that you can move around. The mannequin that we're using is stuck. You can't move it. And in an EMS setting, I want to see my providers pick up the baby mannequin and move with it. There's a move to move with the CPR, which I think this current system doesn't allow for. So,
Yeah, well, the feedback would be, the feedback after the PHA ones are, you seem to, you can move them.
Yeah, you can?
Yeah, they'll run off the battery power, or, I mean, it's not a full scale, no arms or legs.
If you're fire department, you got to be doing with turnout coat on. So
Well,
that
we got the old trauma house in the corner of this collective
Anything else that anyone wants to bring up?
Just a question reference the policy statement 1401 in that specific case. Since that change now is a recommendation, we have in our remediation plan at the agency level was less specific than the remediation plan dictated by the Remac from the MRB. We have a recommendation from the Remac that we follow the remediation plan that is specified in this case.
Which you folks and your medical director have to decide upon. But that also went to the state, did it not?
It hasn't gone yet.
That's going to be the next question, perhaps, forwarded to the state.
Ed and I are actually meeting afterwards to discuss the procedure and what all needs to go.
Paving new ground or pieces of it.
So that will be forwarded to the state, or we don't know?
If that's what I'm told I'm
I
doing.
thought that was our decision when we spoke on the phone recently.
I thought that was part of the special meeting as well.
So I believe that's going to get forwarded to the state. And at this point, I think their review, whatever they decide to do with it, but the fact that they are reviewing it, I think is important.
Okay. So then it's also a recommendation of the Remac that we follow the remediation plan specified by the MRB and approved by the Remac. Is that correct?
That was what was decided at that, especially when we held the last week. Yes.
Okay.
But again, your agency medical director,
It was,
other people have an option.
It reverted back from the special meeting. It reverted back to the sanctions applied by the agency medical director,
Right. So we want
not
to know whether
the
those
additional
recommendations-
sanctions that we had.
Oh, I apologize. I
The
thought-
remediation plan was more specific, specified by the Remac and the MRB, so.
So we
that's
revert
the
back to the medical director's decision?
At this point, until now it's back to the once we forward it off to the bureau, then it is what it is.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we have a recommendation to follow the remediation plan specified previously by the Remac. Yes.
I guess not.
You follow the recommendation of your agency medical director's sanctions.
Yeah, I know, but that was less specific. And the whole thing out of the CMAC is the Remac can recommend, but it can't impose.
And that's what I thought we made a recommendation that they follow the MRB's decision. The MRB can make.
So the motion made during a special meeting was to rescind the Remac action of October 1, 2019.
The Remac action, not the recommendation, the action.
And I'm asking for recommendation.
We can't take any action at a Remac.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was basically, instead of making it, basically change it to a recommendation. And then, because I remember also during that meeting saying, but I think also it will be, advisable that the agency medical director, contact the state if he has concerns.
So we, at that meeting, and you agree with me,
Yeah.
that we discussed that we could no longer take any action but our recommendations still held.
Okay.
That- I mean,
So
that's what
remediation
MRB
plan
is.
recommendations of the MRB are what this group
But
recommends
again,
for us.
it's only a recommendation.
Right, that, I understand that, and I agree with
For
that.
the medical director to then,
That's right, you don't understand my question.
Okay, your medical director has
That's not what we
accept or deny.
His was less specific, that was more specific, so we're going to follow a specific one if that's the recommendation of this group.
I think you need just one more little thing from the medical director there, just, receive the recommendation from the Remac medical review and, the
And then
final
that's-
decision
That's all.
based on the medical director's decision.
Okay.
Again, only a recommendation. Sir?
Where do we sit with reforming the QA committee? Because I know last year we were in that process.
So as far as who's going to staff the QA committee, and we're still kind of at the same spot, we have not moved ahead on that. Honestly, these guys have been so overwhelmed with this action. I don't know how they've gotten anything else done. Sir? I'm sorry?
Want that to be taken on the advanced practice committee?
I think you guys have enough. I really do.
This is another email. I mean, it could,
Oh, you mean to see who's interested?
Yes.
John, would you be okay with that?
Well, the original discussion was an application process. We need to define how many members are going to be on the committee. I'm not going to have, I don't think it's going to be a functioning group if there's a whole room full of people.
Well, I mean, certainly you want to have it open to any of the Remac docs. We know we'll never get a room full.
So typically, the standing makeup of that was Remac doctors, the two ALS representatives from the full council, the BLS representatives from the full council, and the 4 county EMS coordinators. That was the group in tradition.
Problem is trying to get enough of those folks to show up at a meeting. So that's why I think we should expand on that a little bit, and how, whether we open it up to just open membership, maybe adding several other possible names, just to try and get a good showing at meetings.
Yeah.
Can I make a quick recommendation?
Just a second.
Why not open that up to like the QA coordinators from some of the agencies?
Which would be a really good option. So that's a good option, sir.
So we have a tag in the SEMSCO that's currently revising the statewide QA process with Dr. Dorsett and a couple others that are Dr. Dorsett, Mark Philippi, a couple others that are pretty deep into this. I wouldn't go crazy with reorganizing how the regional QA committee is established now. So within less than a year, we have to turn around and reorganize it again.
But we also want to get something in place that using the
Exactly.
Right. So I think just maybe having a smaller group for now, and then as we
So you're going to send out some emails or mailings from your group, right? Why not have people sort of send in, if they have a desire to be part of the QA committee, and why they feel they would be a good addition to the QA committee? And maybe we could review those and pick a few more folks. I'm a QA person at my organization now, things like that. And let's pick a few more names so we have a group to select from. Because if we meet for QA and we've got 3 people here, that's not really enough.
I'll send it out to the Remac doctors, and I'll send it out to my list, which I have for the QA. For the practice committee.
But we would keep the current members part of the group, and then we're just going to try to expand a little bit with your work. Is everyone okay with that? Maybe yes. Because we need BLS providers too on that.
And we're going to close it to just the general public.
Well, yeah, it's got to be.
We got prior to Remac, and it's only from that select group. It's not just the market.
They have to cap it, and everybody needs to. I mean, I'm sure everybody understands it, but when you start getting a large group of folks, I get concerned about quality and confidentiality. We all know that, the walls have ears and discussions happen, and when you get a large group, I just get concerned about it.
I think getting a large group here at 8 o'clock in the morning is probably not good. It would be nice almost.
I'm just voicing my concerns ahead of time, so when it happens, it's not on me.
Do you want to voice some strenuous thing? Sure.
We have a preliminary word that the Monroe County status, what's called status point system, it is acceptable to add the other counties to that.
Yeah, so 2 of your 4 counties are already on. You already have Wayne County and Ontario are status.
This is on the status board?
Status, yeah. And Jim's group in Wayne County uses it very effectively. Well, so I think you guys are using it quite well.
And we got some word from Monroe County, we could add the other 2 counties.
Yeah, so I shot Tim Sopransky an email.
Yeah.
The agency, county.
We have 911 centers.
No, it comes from the agreement. So if the council asks to have them added, they will. So first what I would suggest is first get on the status board. Get your crews using it, get people familiar with it. Then, once it becomes a useful tool, then go to the 911 agency and say, look, here's a way to tell who's available. Stop the ping pong that happens in the EMS world and find out who's staffed and who can, because like Jim is really good about this. So they put, if you're an R assignment, so you know. So if you become SCTs, you can put SCT ambulance on there. You ping up the phone and 911 center knows exactly who to call and dispatch out an ambulance.
So is this a tool that we could have to our emergency departments that they could utilize when it's 10, 11, whatever time of day, and they've got a stroke or an MI that's got to get to the city? Finger Lakes doesn't have SCT. We're not in Canandaigua. Mercy Flight and LifeNet are grounded for weather. And
I wouldn't do it that way. I would call 911. Let the resources do their jobs, right? You call 911 and say, I need emergency connection.
To answer your question, yes, the hospital's
That's not Monroe County. You're talking about the individual county the hospital's in.
If LifeNet and Mercy Flight were on the status board and put available by ground, the hospitals would be able to log in and be able to see.
Is this a manual input, or is this something where there's APIs that you have to call in?
This needs some work.
LifeNet, we need manual inputs.
I think
Right, manual.
a lot of progress.
Right. I know, I'm wondering if it's something that can be automated out of a CAD system or,
No, that's all like
Right.
Can you help us a little bit?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
it's
just
in
manual, yeah. Any kind of.
in a matter of weeks. And now if you go on, I think only Finger Lakes doesn't really use it. They don't really-
Well, no, they're on it now.
They're on.
Okay, one question about the status board.
Oh, I'm good, I have one.
Is it accurate per the minute?
No.
If it's manual, then no. If it's manual,
It's up to you.
then you have human error, you have time, you have.
No, it's not the problem. That's the benefit. So if my crew gets a flat tire and comes off duty, they take themselves off the status board. If I staff a third rate, I pop it up. It is accurate to the minute, as often as you staff.
If it's
If it's done. If it's done.
Hang on.
Let's take a sidebar on this.
But I can tell you right now, Ontario County will not use this board, not even look at it.
I was gonna say, it's gotta go through the
It's
911
gotta-
center
yeah,
to
they
really
won't,
make it
they
all.
won't look at it, we tried.
But it's an option for using.
We were talking about it with the helicopter thing.
Right.
So what if, as part of this SCT plan, just the SCT providers were on this board? Could we utilize it to let a hospital know what's available for SCT?
I would take one step further, I would also add the RSI providers to that as well.
That's what Monroe was.
Yeah.
So SCT providers and RSI providers.
Hazmat,
The hospital doesn't need to
bariatrics,
know that.
dive.
But if we want to use it for the region,
If
yeah.
I'm on duty and I know I'm not an RSI agency, I like to look to see where RSI might be available so that I know who I'm calling.
For the agencies, that's helpful. I'm talking about, right now, I'm being a little selfish, I'm looking after myself working in ED and my colleagues working in ED. We got a patient that's got to get transported, they need SCT. They're on a high-end drip, they're on a ventilator. It can't be a typical ground medic, it's outside their scope. Okay, I normally call LifeNet or Mercy Flight, the weather's bad, they're not flying. I normally go to Finger Lakes for ground. They don't have the availability. Canandaigua is not covered because they don't have a CON for Geneva or Newark. or Clifton Springs. North Seneca doesn't have a CON. So we basically have nothing. No one's going to come out of Monroe County. No one's going to come out of Corning. We have no one to transport this patient.
Actually,
now,
that's not true.
No,
Dr.
you
D,
can
it's actually not correct.
mutual aid.
So you can, because it's a specialty care,
aid,
you can
yes,
pull up anyway.
but Canandaigua has to have a mutual aid agreement with either Mercy Flight LifeNet or
No.
No, because that's statewide.
Absolutely not.
No.
That's not correct. You can drop in Corning and you can drop wherever you want.
if they don't have a CON.
Air medical is different.
Our medical, you kind of it's ground if you don't have a mutual aid agreement signed by the council for policy 1206, and you bill for service outside of your CON, that's fraudulent billing.
How
Yeah.
can it be mutual aid though?
It would have to be, so I call Finger Lakes. They don't have SCP available, but they have a mutual aid agreement with Canandaigua. They call Canandaigua and it's mutual
Right.
aid.
Right.
Now we're covered.
That's what I'm saying, they can call for mutual aid.
So
Right.
we
If
have
they have agreement.
mutual aid agreements
Right.
can work for interfacility transfers, so could that work for dialysis runs too?
Yes.
Okay.
The thing is, we don't even know what these mutual aid agreements are, so when we're looking for help, we don't know what mutual aid agreements that are out there, and I know that there's many that have been put off waiting for a transfusion thing with the, or for some of these other issues that they have not been signed.
I think that's approved by the FLREMSC in the region once the policy's done.
Dr. Calvin.
Just to clarify, when Ross was still around, we went through this, looked at the literature. So if an agency has a CON at destination, is that acceptable?
You can
Yes.
transport in your city.
Yes.
So someone out of Rochester, out of Syracuse, if they're transporting back there, yes, they would be able to. But unfortunately, they often don't have the availability. Plus, it's in bad weather and whatnot. It takes too long to get there.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, yeah, the reality of things, I think we all understand. It's just, but if let me just think. So if we had a patient down here recently during one of the bad weather events where the patient was accepted to Corning. Corning had no resource. Finger Lakes could not do it because the weather was bad there, but Finger Lakes was able to take it to Rochester. Would Corning have been able to take that patient to Rochester?
Oh, to Rochester?
No, it's not there.
No.
If it's Corning AMR, they have their the AMR CON ends in Rochester, so they're good to go there. If it was Bethany, it's
Even if it's Corning AMR, they could go to Rochester.
Yes.
Correct. Yep.
Sorry, thanks.
Yes, real quick. So currently, right now, there's no provision on the Monroe County status board for SCT designation. You have to put it in the comments. That's something that probably a quick email to whoever's on.
Who runs that? Is that Ben or Tim?
I think it's Tim. It's Tim. So you just have to say, can you add an SCT designation? Then you could just put a designation. But right now, currently, it's just ALS, BLS,
So
on our side.
we need to have your group, if you're willing to take it on. Yes, all right. Get a hold of Tim and or Ben. See who's involved with that board. And let's get them to come out to the meeting with us, if we can, or get them to sign in video or audio. And ask them if they can modify that so that it works for us. Because if this thing, if it takes 20 minutes to figure out who's on that board, there's a lot of EDs at night that don't even have a secretary any longer to do that. And I guarantee the ED docs are running ragged. The techs, and it's got to be something they can pull up immediately and look at and say, okay, here we go.
It's got to be accurate. It's got to be.
So,
Thank you.
John, if we at full council pull or get that mutual aid committee back up and running to finish this mutual aid agreements for the counties, that would kind of take care of who can go where.
That would help.
So that if Geneva needed to pull Canandaigua in, they have a mutual aid agreement to be able to pull them.
Well, if you had a mutual aid agreement, say with North Seneca, Canandaigua, because those guys have paramedic level providers. Because there's a lot of times we don't have even a paramedic.
No, I know.
So if you had so we call you or Finger Lakes or Mercy Flight or like that. Everyone's in on this mutual aid agreement. And we call our normal provider and they don't have the availability. But now, based on mutual aid agreements that are signed, North Seneca, Canandaigua, Nava, whoever else is on that mutual aid agreement can come and do that transport and legally bill for it.
I think this is a very big puzzle that needs to be put together because it affects everything.
Oh.
It affects, okay, is this actually mutual aid because we do have an ambulance in service? Are we just using their provider like a fly car meetup for the transfer? I think there's a lot of unanswered questions here. I also think that each county already has a mutual aid plan for EMS as the coordinators. I think the next step of that is the region looking to approve theirs because right now, no mutual aid plan is currently in effect. At least I can't find
You have no
anything.
mutual aid with Finger Lake. You can't come do a transport out of Geneva if we called you. Not if you want to bill.
I'm talking day-to-day calls just as well.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be nice to cover those as well.
yeah. So I think that
We need to work on this.
I think you need a mutual aid committee to figure this out because it's going to
We
be.
used to have one, just died.
I think two things. One is that it's important to look. We've noticed, certainly from a regional perspective and statewide, that a lot of agencies think that they're in compliance with the current 1206 mutual aid policy statement. Okay, and it is a policy statement. Mutual aid is not in statute. Again, I said earlier, we're trying to move mutual aid towards regulatory, in regulation, what have you. But it doesn't preclude the current policy statement from being, in effect. So, the expectation there is that all mutual aid agreements go through the EMS coordinator for the particular account, and then up through the regional council for ultimate approval. Tons of those agency-to-agency mutual aid agreements have never been vetted and never been through that technical process. Okay, the process includes you have to use a CON holder over a non-CON holder. Is there justification to use a non-CON holder over somebody that has a CON for some reason? And they have to provide justification and sort of a ranking similar to rough card type data. A lot of those mutual aid agreements have never been vetted, never been looked at. We don't know that they exist. Those kinds of things. We ask that once they get approved through the regional council, that they're looped to the bureau so that we have at least that's on file. It was approved on such and such a date. This is a sort of a statewide issue that has not been appropriately dealt with. Again, we're moving towards regulation. I don't know how long that's going to be, but I would suggest that the regional councils, the agencies, either come up with a committee to look at the mutual aid system. You look at Wayne County had done basically if all the agencies signed off, and some agencies are moving towards most appropriate with ABL and all sorts of options. But what I recommend is that we obviously the current policy statement is in effect, even though it's not statute. Okay, but we should look at that and proceed that way.
Where is the law regulating mutual aid?
Well, for fire, it's in statute. For EMS, it's not. It's basically
There is
Policy
it's not
driven,
in statute.
correct.
It's policy.
There's no legal definition,
Yeah,
at least on the
it's in
tag of
policy.
what mutual aid is.
It's for your, for the situation, and we get calls all the time saying, hey,
Which means no matter
this is
what,
hospital X. They call
unless it's a
the
CON
regional
holder,
office
it's a
and they say,
violation of law.
look,
It
I
is
called all
followed
the
the
providers that have CON capabilities. They can't come. What can I do? Okay. We recommend that they document that. Obviously, if it's an emergent situation, they need to get that patient out of there. You need to use somebody. Okay. That's not necessarily. It doesn't mean that it's acceptable in the law. Is that agency going to get paid for that? Because it's outside of their CON territory. But that documentation, supporting information related to the facility called Agency A, who has CON, Agency B, who has it, they couldn't do it, and then they had to go to Agency C because they were the only resource that was available, or it was a specialized, transport, that kind of thing. So
there's no law that covers it.
we don't have a law. No.
Not a
It's
necessary
it's not in
service.
Article 30.
So there's no
It's not in
law.
regulation.
There's no
It
law
says-
that supports you. There's only a law that
Forbids you.
that punishes you, or forbids you. So basically, there's no law that allows for any mutual aid in your technical. There is no statute.
For
There is no
ambulance.
legislation.
Yeah, for EMS,
So there.
yeah.
So
It's sort of a voluntary
so if you were to look at the law, well, but even voluntary, if you're not a CON holder, The law doesn't care if you're a volunteer, if it's voluntary or not. The law just says if you bill and you're not a CON holder, you go to court, they're going to say, what's mutual aid? You're going to start explaining, they're going to say, I don't care.
That's the regulation that gets people's attention, is that if you don't have a CON
Yeah.
or a mutual aid agreement, you're not
So,
getting paid.
as of right
Council
now,
issues the CON, right?
Sorry, say again.
Who issues the CON?
The state issues the CON, but the regional council
Recommendation.
approves the CON.
revise it.
Do we advise?
You make a recommendation.
Make a recommendation.
Okay, has anyone ever recommended a emergency situation CON?
There's an emergency CON that I think can be approved for up to 60 days. If there's a gap, there certainly has been a couple of emergency CONs for, not for, there's also, there's a whole other section, and I'll be honest, we are looking at that section. I think it's I can't tell you the number off the top of my head because I'm not sure. But there is a module in Article 30 that says that the state has a responsibility in conjunction with the state council and the commissioner to have a non-emergency, basically statewide non-emergency transport program. Okay, we currently don't have, that doesn't exist currently. Okay, we rely on the CON holder, we rely on the specific regions to have an appropriate, adequate transportation system for non-emergency or emergent transfers. You know, that piece we're looking at because we've got a lot of these issues where there's hospitals that have, give an example, in Western New York, we've got a hospital closing. We're looking at who can take patients out of there. One of the agencies just did a CON to have that specific area because the hospital couldn't get patients out, and then the hospital is now closing after they just went through the entire CON process. So we're looking at, from a statewide network perspective and futuristically from a strategic plan, what we're going to do about that. But that's,
Do you know who's working on that?
Steve DeJura, we're looking at it. I'm saying we're looking at it.
And the problem with that part he's talking about is there's a specific part of that addresses certified ambulance service versus your medical transportation, your stretchers, wheelchair vans. That's the part of the law.
And do you see a shift at some point with this becoming more of an issue of a difference in CON designations from emergency 911 response and a interfacility CON as well?
I will say this: we had CONs that have been, we've had a hospital facility in Western New York apply specifically for a non-emergency. That CON was denied because a CON is a CON. It doesn't differentiate between emergency, non-emergency, or additional lines of care. Level of care is obviously decided by the Remac and the appropriate regional council in conjunction with policy and procedure. But
and it would be a huge reg change, but it may.
I will say this:
10 years down the road.
We're still dealing with 1970s, Article 30 type of documentation that needs to be significantly upgraded. I think that with our new administration, there's a lot of energy about upgrading the code, upgrading the regulations, and bringing them to modern day, EMS system development and thinking out futuristically. But as you know, statute changes are not easy,
right?
And it's a huge lift. And
I know a safe act went through pretty fast.
That's
2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it depends on
We take it on to the bill for flowers on the freeway.
But I think that it's important to remain consistent with our policy. We can talk about what's going to happen in the future, but currently 1206 is the current mutual aid policy. The regulation changes that are forthcoming on that, will be open for public comment, and I think it's a huge issue. It is a huge issue. So
I guess the first thing we really do need to do is work on the SAT policy.
Yes.
So we've got definitions and all that in place.
And that's the problem. There aren't any.
I think that's an important piece. There's also another section in the, I'll send it to you, but it basically, it talks about, it's more with the hospital, hospital owned or hospital contracted EMS agency specific specialty care transports, specialty care patients. They've never truly been identified by the state. I know the state is now, we've got a tag that's working on specialty care transport, so the timing of this is certainly relevant. I would encourage the region to move forward with the SAT program process.
This is something that's variable across the state, though. And the problems that we're having in our 4 counties are very different from what they see down in Westchester, Suffolk, you know. We are in a state of crisis almost every single day. We've got to come up with something. And I think, you know, moving ahead, Mike, you guys on the SAT, that's super important. You know, this afternoon when there's a patient that needs to come out of Newark and there's no Finger Lakes available, the weather's bad, we got to have a temporary fix. And if you guys can utilize your crews with a basic life support ambulance, with a CON provider first,
Right.
you know, if we can work, you know, work within what we have now, that would help out a lot. And the other part of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you are a volunteer agency and you bring a patient in, that patient needs to be transported out, even though you don't have a CON, you can do that transport.
There's certain exceptions in the law. One, and I don't have off the top of my head, but one of them is certainly that circumstance. It says operate your primary territory except if you're operating under a full mutual aid agreement, if you brought that patient in.
So if we could utilize
religious exemptions and
a fly car,
a
crew that can't fly, and that volunteers ambulance to provide the transport, again, to get that patient where they need to go, we're worried about the patient without trying, and obviously trying not to break into us. So that's another option that we've utilized on a rare occasion that could be utilized. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some complicated billing.
Very.
That's where it gets.
I don't know how, fire department ambulance brought it in. Fire department ambulance can't bill.
The only billing.
Only transporting.
We're not billing, so
is between what they provide and what's the critical care rate.
Gotcha.
But you know, there's also the side of who bills where it's advanced time. It goes a long way. It wouldn't be the first time where someone stepped up, did something right, and got a pretty nice donation and return for it. So there's other ways of working this out. We've got to take care of our patients. And, you know, if we've got technology available to retract and fly, to open up a vessel, and we can't get to the people there in time, we're not doing anyone any good.
And then the only, like every ground transport that we've ever done, we don't bill. It's the ground agency that does bill.
Right, for $100 kickback like they do in the MSU.
They can contract whatever they want, but, you know, it's usually just the difference between the level of service provided by that ambulance and the critical care transport.
SCT minus ALS, there's a difference.
That's it. If
All right.
there's an agreement in place, but that usually is right.
Usually there isn't,
We're
right?
happy to do it because they need to get there.
Any other items, sir?
I just had a quick clarification. Lift Fisher is going to ALS, first response paramedic. It doesn't apply to us right now, but for someone like me who's been RSI credentialed for 10 plus years through an aeromedical service and through their credentialing process, how does that relate to if I went to an ambulance service and began doing ground transport within the region? Would I have to go through ALS?
You would have to be going to an agency that is an RSI agency, first of all. And then you would have to apply through the committee, and the committee.
So there was never a provision for reciprocity. There is a provision for reciprocity. There will be, well, I should say, will be once more.
The committee no longer has a statute to
Regulate it.
not regulate it, but
Only make
make a
suggestions.
recommendation to the regional to the agency medical director.
Agency,
right.
Right, so it's really up to the agency medical director of that ground RSI agency.
But they're not but they're first responsive technically falling. But there's a provision now. It's got to be voted.
Quick question for Fishers. Are you guys going to be available for ALS to transport with BLS regs?
So the way that we've written our SOPs in compliance with requirements for EMS is that if we respond, now I'm a paramedic, we get through our processes, I arrive at the scene to provide paramedic care, but mutual aid comes with a BLS ambulance. If it's not reasonable through our SOPs, the way they're written, if it is a time lost that we need to get going, I go on the ambulance and take the patient as the paramedic. If time allows to have a transport full paramedic unit come and take the patient, that would be preferable, but we will not do so to put the patient at risk. So if I can get the patient to the hospital quicker, all of our paramedics will go with the ambulance and be the primary care provider.
I'm just curious, what do you guys acceptable time? I've run into this problem in past places, you know.
Yeah, since we've gone to the AEMT level in May of 19, I believe we've had 3 instances where we sent a paramedic along. All 3 of those related to going as the second paramedic along with the ambulance crew, just to provide a second set of hands to assist.
But there's a chance you could be the primary paramedic to the call, being closest to ALS.
Actually, the first day that we went AEMT, I was on. I had a motorcycle wreck on the expressway. The BLS ambulance responded. I put in 2 14s. We drove down the road, met the paramedic. The paramedic jumped in. I jumped out. My engine was behind me. We went back in service. So we were moving the patient towards the hospital without keeping them at the scene to await that arriving bus.
Okay.
You don't want to apply for the extended CON to cover the rest of the 4 counties.
I'm sure the commissioners would love the Queen coming down to Canada or something.
All right, folks, anything else for discussion today? Motion to adjourn?
I got one thing.
Oh, sir.
Tonight at Canandaigua, we're hosting a CME for sepsis. Dr. Weiss is putting it on at time.
Who is?
Dr. Weiss.
Oh, I know Dr. Weiss. Oh, wow.
It starts at 18:30, so I'll spread it around to your crews. If you're interested, find out.
Arnie sparked one thing that I'll just share real quick. There is a cost data collection seminar in Liverpool on Friday. That's going to be done in conjunction with the American Ambulance Association.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay warm.
It's all good. Yeah.